The midday sun scorched Willow Creek Avenue, its heat pressing down like a weight. 72-year-old Eleanor Vance shuffled along the cracked pavement, clutching her canvas bag. Inside were a loaf of bread, 2 apples, and a wrinkled photograph of her granddaughter. Every Thursday, she made this same trip, a quiet ritual of survival. Halfway across the intersection, the scream of tires shattered the silence. "Hey, you old hag," a voice bellowed. "What are you hiding in that bag?" Officer Mark Denton stormed toward her, his uniform stained with sweat, his eyes blazing with hatred. "Excuse me?" Eleanor stammered, clutching the bag tighter. "I told you to stop." Denton sneered. "That's like you don't get to walk free on my street. What did you steal?" Her hands trembled as she held the bag out. "Just bread and apples. Please, nothing more." He snatched it, ripping it open. "Pathetic. You think I care what trash like you has to say? You're nothing. You should have died with those worthless marches of yours back in the 60s. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "I haven't done anything wrong." "No God listens to your kind," Denton spat. Then, without warning, he shoved her violently, clamping his hand around her throat. Eleanor gasped, her frail body collapsing beneath his grip. "Please, I can't breathe." "That's it," Denton hissed. "That's all you are. Nothing." Her vision blurred. Her fingernails scraped the asphalt in a desperate search for air. The world dimmed, but then a shadowed man rounded the corner. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the discipline of a soldier. His eyes locked on the scene, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Alexander Alex Vance, decorated Marine veteran, Eleanor's husband of 49 years, froze at the sight of his wife being strangled by a uniformed officer. Then instinct took over. He sprinted forward. Denton barely looked up before Alex's fist slammed into his face. Bone cracked. The officer collapsed to the ground in a bloody heap. Alex dropped to his knees beside Eleanor. She was gasping, barely alive. "I'm here, my queen," Alex whispered, stroking her cheek. "Just breathe. I've got you." But Denton wasn't finished. Staggering to his feet, face drenched in blood, he roared, "You touched me, you filthy animal. You don't know who I am." He pulled his pistol free, aiming it at Alex's head. "On your knees," he screamed. "You and your slave are going to rot together." Eleanor's voice was a whisper. "Alex, no." Alex raised his hands with chilling calm, the posture of a man who had stood in firefights where one breath meant life or death. His voice was steady low. "Put the gun down." Denton's finger trembled on the trigger. Then Alex lunged. The weapon clattered to the pavement. Within seconds, Denton was on his back again, Alex's forearm across his throat. But Alex didn't press down. He leaned close, his voice sharp as steel. "You're going to live long enough to pay," he growled. "Every word, every insult. You'll watch this country spit you out." For the first time, fear flashed in Denton's eyes. Sirens wailed in the distance. Eleanor wheezed, sucking air back into her lungs as Alex held her tight. Moments later, paramedics arrived. They lifted Eleanor onto a gurney, murmuring about weak pulse, possible asphyxiation. Alex climbed into the ambulance without asking, his hand never leaving hers. Back on the street, Denton was handcuffed, his dignity shattered, his face a ruin of blood and broken bone. He muttered curses, but his voice shook. The humiliation stung more than the pain. That night, in a quiet hospital room, Eleanor lay sedated, her breathing shallow but steady. The doctor said she was lucky. Minor concussion, bruised neck, nothing worse. Alex stood at the window, arms crossed, his reflection dark against the city lights. The morning sun had barely risen when Dixon slid a sealed folder across his desk, stamped absolute priority. Inside was the video that could destroy lives. That same hour, in a Pentagon office thousands of miles away, retired General Sterling, staunch Republican, battle-hardened, but bound by loyalty to Alex Vance, watched the same footage in silence. When it ended, his jaw clenched. He picked up the phone and called the district attorney directly. "If that man isn't in custody by sunrise," he said coldly, "I'll make calls that will shake half of Washington to its core." By noon, the city police department faced the cameras. The chief, pale under the lights, announced, "Officer Mark Denton has been suspended without pay. After reviewing new video evidence, we have determined grounds for prosecution: attempted homicide, excessive force, racially motivated conduct, and violation of civil rights." In the crowd, Alex stood unsmiling. He had waited for this moment. Days later, Eleanor Vance, recovering at home with a brace around her neck, watched as Alex prepared himself. He dressed in a navy suit, tied his tie with military precision, and slipped a tarnished insignia from his service days into his pocket. Not for nostalgia, but for battle. When he entered the federal courthouse, the air itself seemed to tighten. His attorney, Walter Dixon, laid the folder on the table before the judge. "Your Honor," Dixon declared, "my client is not here only as a husband. He is here as a citizen, a veteran, and a witness to a crime that stains the very fabric of our nation." The trial drew a crowd. The courtroom was packed, buzzing with silent anticipation. In the front row, Eleanor sat straight, regal despite her injury. She wore a sky-blue dress, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her gaze was steady, though her eyes shimmered with restrained emotion. Beside her, Alex was stone-faced, though every muscle inside him screamed for release. Across the room sat Mark Denton. He looked nothing like the swaggering officer he once was. His nose crooked from a bad break, his eyes sunken, his suit hanging loose. His wrists were cuffed. His soul looked chained. The judge's voice broke the silence. "We call our first witness, Alexander Vance." Alex rose, swore the oath, and turned toward the jury. "My name is Alexander Vance. I served this country for 27 years. I've seen wars, I've seen death. But never in all that time have I witnessed anything that shattered me more than watching my wife, a 72-year-old woman, treated as if her skin color made her less than human." He pointed at Denton. This man didn't act out of duty. He didn't react to a threat. He saw a black woman and decided humiliation, pain, and death were his privilege. He called her a roach, a slave. He told her even God had no mercy for her kind, and he smiled while he said it. The jury sat frozen. "But God did have mercy," Alex said, voice steady, "because she lives, and today it is he who begs for mercy. But in this room, there are no knees on necks, no guns on empty hands. Here, there's only truth and justice." "Your Honor," Dixon rose, "we request permission to play the video." The lights dimmed. The monitor flickered on. The pawn shop footage unfolded in stark clarity. The insults, the threats, the chokehold, and the phrase that chilled the blood of everyone present. "God himself has no mercy for your kind." When the screen went black, the silence was unbearable. Denton buried his face in his hands. His lawyer tried to object, but the judge's gavel silenced him. Then Eleanor rose, slow but unshaken. The court turned to her. "I did not come for revenge," she said clearly. "I came because every day, without justice, tells others like me they have no worth. I want the world to know we are seen and we are worth something." The judge instructed the jury. Deliberations lasted less than an hour. The verdict, guilty on all counts. The sentence, 30 years without parole, dishonorable discharge, federal hate crime investigation. Denton collapsed. His knees hit the floor, eyes wide with panic. No mercy came. Alex looked at him once, not with hatred, but with the resolve of a man who had fulfilled a promise. A week later, Alex and Eleanor walked again along Willow Creek Avenue. The bakery still smelled of war bread. Flowers still bloomed. But now the street carried the weight of justice delivered. At sunset, Alex often opened a drawer, staring at two objects, his medal for valor and the court ruling with Denton's name struck through. One evening, as Eleanor rested in her chair, Alex took her hand and kissed it gently. "I told you I'd protect you." She smiled faintly. "You always have." He gazed at the horizon. "And now?" She answered softly, "Now we live, and they will remember what we did."